Traveling down the Mississippi River, a young deckhand by the name of Samuel Clemens measures the river's depth while a tournament is occurring between high-stakes gamblers to see who can reach the target number without going over. Who knows, maybe Mr. Clemens will write about his experience working on a riverboat one day, even if he doesn't touch upon the game of 21 itself. Greetings and welcome to Checkpoint Gaming. With this 4-part series, we'll be going over Blackjack. With Blackjack, also known as 21, is a tabletop banking game that consists of a competition between the player and the dealer, with any other players found at the table being of no concern. With the game's name, it came from the player getting a 10-to-1 payout if their hand consisted of an ace of spades and a blackjack. Even when this bonus was removed, the game kept the name. With the game's objective, it is to beat the dealer, not with a club known as a blackjack, but by drawing cards with a combined total that equals or as close to 21 as possible without going over, although, at times, one might actually want to break out a blackjack and lash out at the dealer because things aren't going well. This also extends to shillelaghs, so to our Irish and Irish diaspora friends, it'll be a good idea to leave your shillelaghs at home. We're looking at you, Boston. If the player's hand is better than the dealer's, they win and receive a payout of 1-to-1, which is also known as even money, but if the value exceeds 21, the player busts and they lose. It is also possible for the dealer to bust, and if both the dealer and player bust, they both lose. On top of this, if the dealer has a blackjack and the player obtains a hand that is equal to 21 but isn't a blackjack, then the player will lose. If both the player and the dealer have the same card value, it counts as a tie, also known as a standoff or a push, and no one wins. But if the player's total is less than that of the dealer's hand, the house wins. With card values, each face card is worth 10 points. The ace is worth either 1 or 11 points based on the situation, and all other cards are worth their face value while suits have no value. And if a player is dealt an ace and a 10-valued card as their initial 2 cards, it is known as a blackjack or a natural 21 and will win 3-2, which is immediately paid before any other play is made unless the dealer also possesses a blackjack or said player placed an insurance bet. At this point, the dealer will check their hand to see if they have a blackjack. If the dealer's face-up card is either an ace or 10-valued card, then the player can request a payout of even money before the dealer checks if they have a blackjack. And if the player has an insurance bet, it is returned to them if they ask for a payout. But if the player doesn't request to receive even money, the dealer doesn't have a blackjack, and the player has a blackjack, then they receive the standard payout. It's worth noting that when a player has an ace, the player has a soft total when the ace is valued at 11, and a hard total when the ace is valued at 1. And if a player has 21, they can't hit or double down. When it comes to a round, it can consist of 1, a period of play that consists of 7 hands or 7 betting opportunities, or 2, a period of play that starts with the dealer telling the players to place their bets and ends when the final settlement of the score is done for all participating players. With a seated player, it refers to any player that is sitting at the table at one of the designated betting areas and has placed a bet within said area, along with making decisions for said bet. Before going any further, let's look at the table. Although any table type can be used for casual play, formal play requires a specialty table that is semicircular in shape, topped with felt, and seats up to 7 players, with each player having their own area where bets are placed and cards are dealt. Information is also printed on the felt that can include minimum and maximum betting limits, payouts, payout odds, dealer instructions, and any restrictions if applicable. It's also divided so that the players are on one side of the table and the dealer is found opposite, with tables that come with bells and whistles include a table tray, a discard rack, a drop slot and drop box with a money paddle, and occasionally a tip box. They can also come with a no-peek device for the dealer to view their hole card to help them determine if they have a blackjack or not. Establishments can also have their name and/or logo found within the wager area, as well as posting payouts at the table, with management able to change the table limits at any time with the following conditions. All players currently playing at the table agree to the change, or a notice is displayed at said table at least 30 minutes prior to the change. Regarding the cards, a standard 52-card deck with the jokers removed is the base, and the number of decks used in a game ranges from 1 to 8. With multiple decks, a dealer's shoe must be used to deal out the cards and is accessible only by the dealer. Poker chips are also used for betting. Before play, the establishment will check the cards for completeness and imperfections and will spread them out consecutively on the table by suit. Regarding wagers, since they don't have to be in multiples of the table minimum, players can make any bet they desire as long as they're within the stated limits. If a player is allowed to exceed the stated minimum and maximum wagers permitted at the table, they're to receive a higher limit marker, which is placed next to their play area. When the cards are initially dealt, it's after the players have made their initial wagers, with one card dealt face up in a clockwise direction to every participating player, starting with the player found to the dealer's left and ending with the dealer. From there, a second card is dealt face up except for the dealer who gets it face down and counts as the whole card. A variant to this sees the dealer receiving both cards face down, followed by turning one face up before continuing play. A variant to this will see the dealer burn the first card from the shoe before dealing out the cards to the participants. And when we say burn, we mean it's just discarded, not the Salem-style burning. After the cards are shuffled, they're placed into the shoe where they're dealt out onto the table. The dealer will use the hand found closest to the shoe to draw the cards and their other hand to place the dealt card to the appropriate place, although an option exists where the cards dealt to the two players found closest to the shoe can be done with a single hand. Cards are also to be dealt in such a manner where any face-down cards aren't to be revealed or presented in such a way where someone can ascertain their value. With the dealing of cards, two options exist. The first option sees the players receive both of their initial cards face up, while the dealer receives one card face up and the other face down, with all players finishing their turn before the dealer reveals their second card. The dealer can also peek at their down card to determine if they have a blackjack. If so, they turn it over immediately. The second option sees the players receiving both of their cards face up, with the dealer only getting one card face up and will only get a second card when all the players have finished their turn. And since they only have one card, the dealer can't check if they have a blackjack. With this series, we're using the first option. Players are also not allowed to touch their bets after the first card is dealt, nor are they allowed to touch their cards at this point. Only the dealer is allowed to handle, remove, or otherwise alter the location of the cards. After the second card is dealt, will the players be allowed to pick them up? The policies of the establishment will also determine if the players are allowed to use one or both hands when doing this. Once all the players have received their hand, will the dealer look at their whole card, followed by playing their hand. The dealer will also announce the total of the player's hand. A variant to this is when the dealer has an ace or 10 valued card as their face up, which will have them look at the whole card to see if they possess blackjack. If they do, they reveal the whole card with play immediately stopping, them winning the hand and claiming the player's bets unless any player also has blackjack. After receiving their initial cards, the player can choose to stand or draw. If they stand, they tell the dealer that they don't want any more cards. But if the player draws, which is also known as hitting, they ask for more cards, which will increase their chance of getting 21, receiving one card at a time, face up. Once they get their new card, their new total is to be announced. Players can draw as many cards as they want until they decide to stand, or they draw cards that equal or exceed 21. Once a player has a hand that is equal to 21, they can't draw any more cards. A variant to drawing sees a player with a card count that is valued at less than 12 having to hit until they have a hand value equal to 12 or better, and if the player wins, they get paid the same amount that they wagered. If the dealer doesn't have blackjack, play will continue after each player gets their second card with the player found to the dealer's left starting off. And if the player busts, the dealer will immediately take the player's cards and place them into the discard pile and claim their wager. With collecting losing wagers, it's done starting with the player found furthest right of the dealer and continuing in a counterclockwise direction with these wagers directly placed into the table's inventory. From there, the winning wagers are paid off with the paying of winning wagers not allowed to be done with chips collected from any losing wager. Once every player has finished their turn, the dealer will expose their whole card and follow the rules for dealer action. Depending on house rules, hand gestures are required when players wish to hit or stand. But if they wish to split, double down, or take insurance, it's done verbally. Hand gestures also trump verbal commands when appropriate. To hit, the player will tap the table area found in front of them or to make a beckoning gesture with their hand. But if the player wishes to stand, the player will move their hand horizontally in a cutting-off motion across the table. If a card from a shoe happens to fall to the ground while playing at an establishment, then the pit boss will be called over. But with a card that belongs to a player and it falls to the ground, it is to be put back into play as long as it is easily identifiable. With a wager, it is a bet made by the player with the initial wager known as an ante and indicates the player's desire to participate in a hand. Unless the player is splitting pairs, doubling down, or making an insurance wager, they can't increase, decrease, or withdraw their ante after the first card is dealt unless otherwise authorized by the game variant or house rules. And when making a wager, regardless of type, it's done with the pre-approved medium of exchange. No other types of wagers are to be permitted unless stated otherwise. With optional wagers, the minimum and maximum amounts are to be displayed either on the table layout or signage and are also limited to the current hand being played. And only players that are participating at the given table can make optional wagers. With that said, players can't make side wagers with each other. Players are also responsible for placing bets within the permissible minimum and maximum limits for the given table. Once the dealer announces no more bets, no additional bets are allowed, with the dealer refusing any such occurrences. And when settling bets, they're done in accordance with chip position after betting is closed. The house also isn't liable for paying out for any bets made in error. With side bets that are made without an initial bet and it is noticed by the dealer after the round starts, the side bets are returned to the player. If play continues before the dealer can settle side bets, then the dealer will settle them as soon as possible. In a round where play has been voided, all bets are returned to the players before moving on to the next round. And once the next round starts, the result of the previous round stands. It is also possible for a player to be excluded from play in future rounds if they didn't wager in the first round, having to wait until the cards are reshuffled. Any player that is permitted to enter a game after the first round might be limited to wager the table minimum until the cards are reshuffled. It is also possible for players who decline making a bet after making an earlier wager to be disqualified by the house from making further wagers until a new shoe has been started. And if players are playing multiple hands, it has to be done in a contiguous area on the table with no other players found sitting between the hands being played and the player controlling them. And when players engage in doubling down or splitting while the dealer has a blackjack, then the player will lose their initial bet with their other wagers returned to them. Players are also able to double down or split their pairs. Doubling down is when the player places an additional bet that is equal to their initial bet, although some establishments might have a different rule regarding the amount, and occurs after they receive their first two cards, where they can make an additional wager that is equal to their original bet unless their initial two cards total 21. And when a player doubles down, they can only draw one additional card. But if the dealer obtains a blackjack after the player doubles down, then the player will only obtain the original wager they bet. Players can also double down after they hit or perform a split unless they split aces, and depending upon the establishment, it may determine what hand a player is able to double down on and might not allow players to hit after doing so. In our research, restrictions might exist when it comes to a hard 9, 10, or 11, so it's a good idea to check what the given house rules are. The player also isn't allowed to withdraw their bet after they doubled down. With splitting a pair, it's when the first two cards the player receives have the same value, including two 10-point cards, thus creating two separate hands. The player will then place an additional bet equal to the first bet, with each bet placed on each card, followed by the dealer playing each hand separately. And pairs can be split more than once unless aces are split, which sees the player only receiving one card for each ace, with aces valued at 11. And if a face card is dealt to either ace, it counts as 21 instead of blackjack. Players are also not allowed to surrender their hand after splitting it. Depending on the establishment, a limit might exist on how many times pairs can be split. In our research, some sources said a pair can be split 3 times, while others say it's unlimited. Some variants of the game also only allow a hand to only be split once. Players can also draw as many cards as they want for each hand. With each subsequent split, the player can bet a value equal to the original bet. If the dealer gets blackjack, they'll only collect the original wager. Hands are played in order, so play is completed on the first hand before completing play on the second hand. Players can also double down on each hand. With all of this said, the dealer can determine what pairs are allowed to be split. Players can also abstain from splitting any pairs, and depending upon house rules, a player can choose not to bet on a split hand. And any split hands that exceed 21 will lose, regardless of the outcome of the dealer's hand. When it is time for the dealer to turn over their whole card, they will act on their hand accordingly, with a card total of 16 or less seeing the dealer draw, while a card total of 17 or more see them stand. Some establishments also allow the dealer to hit on a soft 17. With insurance, it's a side bet, which is up to half the value of the player's initial bet, and it occurs when the first card a dealer gets is an ace, with a player betting against the dealer getting a blackjack. This occurs after they receive their second card, but before the dealer draws any more cards, or before the dealer looks at their whole card. A variant to this sees the dealer, after receiving an ace as their face-up card, ask the players if they want insurance. The dealer will also close their insurance offer by waving their hand over the table, which puts an end to insurance bets being made. If the dealer gets blackjack, the player loses their initial bet, but their insurance pays out at the rate of 2-1. But if the dealer doesn't get blackjack, the player will lose their insurance but will keep their initial bet. Players also can't win both the initial bet and the insurance bet. It's either or. If the player loses their insurance, the bet is collected by the dealer before they draw any additional cards. And depending on the establishment, the dealer might offer a player who has blackjack the option of getting paid even money on a blackjack wager instead of making an insurance wager. If the player selects the even money payout, then the dealer will pay the blackjack wager at the rate of 1-1 and remove the player's cards, and no other player can participate in another player's insurance bet. So with that said, that is what you need to know about the basics of blackjack. With that taken care of, we can start talking about irregularities that can occur during gameplay. If you liked this episode, feel free to give it a like. And if you want to stay up to date on any future episodes we upload, go ahead and subscribe. You can also support us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/checkpointgaming. See you in the next episode and happy gaming.